welcome to a new episode of Brokercast. I'm Eshna Harper, Asset Finance Business Development Manager here at Alica, and today we'll be exploring the world of asset finance in the agriculture sector. Agriculture is the backbone of the economy, but it's also an industry that faces challenges. Farmers often need significant investment in machinery, equipment, technology, just to stay competitive, while also managing cash flow in seasonal cycles. Today, we'll take an underwriter's perspective on the sector. Joining me, Andrew Worton, Underwriter.
Thanks, Eshna, for the invite.
Agriculture is such a dynamic and crucial sector. Finance plays such an important part in helping farmers grow their businesses. With that comes both challenges and opportunities. From your perspective as an underwriter, Andrew, what are some of the key challenges that farmers face when they seek finance, and what opportunities exist for them in the sector?
So, Eshna, thanks. One of the biggest challenges we see is seasonality, with the farmer's income being tied to harvests or specific seasons, and they often have to await their income streams, sometimes only after the harvest has taken place. There are also other threats to a farmer, such as environmental threats being climate change, political threats being strikes and labor shortages due to economic factors, and increasing costs, for example, production and input costs. We know that farmers are a community and they tend to help each other out and have a big network. We are aware that in many instances, farmers purchase assets from neighbors through word of mouth and via information shared at events, etc. They don't always use traditional suppliers of equipment, as they can usually get a better deal in the farming community and even at auctions. Alica is more than able to facilitate these transactions accordingly. Some opportunities, Eshna, in the sector are diversifying income streams and not being reliant on the more traditional revenue lines, for example, large chain store contracts. There is an ever-increasing demand for local produce as people like to see where the end product comes from. There's also a number of ways of creating additional income, from expanding to agritourism, where we see requests for glamping pods, and opening the farm up to visitors and events. There's also a big opportunity to rent out machinery and equipment that may be lying dormant at any given time of the year. One of the biggest requests we see, however, is for renewables, with solar being a good example of how to maximize the most of their property and land and reduce costs accordingly, and most importantly, reduce their carbon footprint.
That's really interesting and really great to see that there's so many different ways that farmers have been using finance. Farmers can use hire purchases, leases, and refinance to assist them in growing their business. We've recently updated our refinance offering. Can you give some examples of how refinance could help a business in the agricultural sector thrive?
Thanks, Eshna. Refinance can be a really powerful tool for farmers. It can allow the farmers to unlock the capital they've already invested in assets, which can then be reinvested in other areas of the business, whether that's buying new equipment, expanding operations, helping them to diversify, and even purchasing further land. We recently refinanced a tractor for a farmer in order for them to raise much needed capital for expansion and to purchase some leasehold property that they would then go on to renovate in order to rent these buildings out. By doing so, this created a new income stream for the farmer. And in this particular operation, the farm ran alongside these income producing rental units. So it's a good example of an agricultural business diversifying its operations. The valuation we obtained from one of our new valuation panel members on this asset was supportive, and the deal was concluded within a week. Alica has also, Eshna, as you're aware, recently simplified and enhanced our refinance product. We listened to feedback and have much improved offering. For example, we now lend up to a maximum of 120% of the valuation we obtain from our partners in conjunction with the Growth Guarantee Scheme, or GGS, as it's commonly known. We've also added additional valuators to our panel that specialize in agricultural market assets accordingly.
That's really interesting, Andrew. And it's really great to hear that our product's not just stayed the same and it's updated from the feedback that we received as well. If you would say give 3 tips on how to make a killer application in agriculture specifically, but also wider business as well, what would they be?
So, Eshna, most importantly, the broker prop is to be really detailed, and it must give full insight into the business, outlining the request to hand and the rationale behind the request. Also, most important, full details on the asset or assets to be considered, And in this instance, if they have original invoices, spec sheets, etc., that can help tremendously. If it's a complex structure where there's possibly a whole lot of businesses involved, it would be great to provide an organizational chart or organogram clearly outlining the various entities. For example, some farms may have the land held in one entity, the operations side in another, etc., etc. We'd also need the latest full accounts of all entities involved in the transaction, any management information that's available, and dependent on deal size, we could be calling for things like debtors and creditors listings. And then obviously the most important, it always makes it easier if the broker has already met with the customer at the farm, and this should be clearly recorded on the proposal.
Thanks, Andrew. That's really, really helpful. That's a wrap on this week's Brokercast.